What's up everyone, Kenji here, and in this video I thought I'd walk you through how to write the best resume you can possibly write. Just to clarify here, some countries call it a CV, but for the purposes of this video they mean the same thing. So does a perfect resume even exist? And the answer is no. If you go on the internet and type perfect resume, you'll see all sorts of resumes from career experts, and some have the name on the center, others have the name on the side, some have colors, some even have summaries while others don't. Well, that's confusing, and the reason it's like that is because there's no one size fits all. When you think of your resume as an advertisement, which is basically what it is, you're advertising yourself to a company, there's actually many different types of ads, right? There's billboard ads, there's social media ads, there's TV ads, and so on and so forth. And some people prefer one type of ads, whilst others prefer some different types of ads. And so it's a bit of the same with the resume. And that's why even experts have differences, but there are some best practices that you can follow to maximize your chances of getting to the next step in the recruitment process, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. I've also attached a resume template in the description. It's completely free for you to use. I'm not looking for your email or anything like that. But if you find it useful, I would appreciate it if you can smash that like button and hit that subscribe as well. Alright, let's get into the video. So starting off with the basics, for the formatting, just keep it simple. So a dark color and using the same font throughout, so keeping it consistent is probably best. If you are in a more creative field, say, then it might make sense for you to add some colors in there and make it more personalized. But if you're not, it's really a safe bet to just go with a plain dark color. When it comes to length, the recommendation is just one page. Unless you're in academia or you have a lot of work experience, then you might want to make it longer. But if you're a student or you're recently fresh out of college, then you don't need anything more than one page. As for the structure of the resume, if you're a student, this is the one you should follow. So first off, you'll have the contact details, then you'll have the education section, after which you'll have the work experience, then the leadership and award section, and finally you'll end with the additional information section on the bottom. Now if you're an experienced professional and it's been a few years since you've left education, then the education section is no longer going to be on the top. Instead, you're going to bring it down and work experience is going to go on the top, right? And don't worry if you don't know what to include in the sections, we'll go over that throughout the video. But overall, the idea is that you're going to have whatever is taking up most of your time on top, right? So if you're a student, obviously education is going to go up top, whilst if you're a full-time worker, then your work experience is going to go up top, right? Now this is probably the most common structure of a resume, but like we saw earlier when we looked up the perfect resume, there's actually many right answers. So for example, if you don't have any leadership experience or awards, like it was in my case, I personally just took it out. And if you're curious to see what my resume looked like, specifically the resume that got me an internship at Goldman Sachs, I made a video just on that, so feel free to check it out as well. Alternatively, if you have very little work experience because you're very young, for instance, and you can't really fill that whole page in, then you might want to write something like a summary profile on the very top, where for something like 3 sentences, you're going to talk about your key skills and accomplishments. Overall, you have full control of what you put in your resume and you want to make yourself look as attractive as possible, right? So it's up to you to add some extra sections or omit some sections depending on what makes you look best, right? So for instance, in my Goldman resume that I showed earlier, there I also added a skill section for adding some languages and some computer skills, which I felt like I wanted to highlight. So it's really up to you as to what you decide to put. So let's get into the details of each section. Okay, so first off, the contact details, and this one's fairly self-explanatory. In big, you should have your name. It can be on the side or it can be in the center. That doesn't really matter too much. And underneath that, you might want to add your address, your email, and it should be a professional email. It shouldn't be something like kenjisthegoat@gmail.com or anything ridiculous like that. And then next to it, you can add your phone number. I've also noticed that an increasingly popular thing to do there is to add your LinkedIn profile, so basically leave the link up there. I'd suggest you do so if you feel like your LinkedIn is going to enhance your resume. Alright, so moving on to the education section, and here the more recently you've been in education, the more detail you should have in it. So if you're a student or you're a recent graduate, you should obviously have a lot more than if you graduated say 10 years ago, right? So you should include your university name on one side, and then on the other side you'd have the location as well as your expected graduation date in month and year format. Also, you want to include bullets for your major, your minor, or your concentration if you had one, as well as for your grades. And at the same time, if you've managed to reach the Dean's List, for instance, you can also add that in there as well. Next up, under education, you can also include your high school or your exchange if you did one. Overall, I'd suggest including these if you feel like you don't have much to talk about in your later sections and your resume feels empty. You can obviously talk more about the high school and the exchange, right? Lastly, you can also include a relevant coursework section. If you find that the job description says that they're looking for people that have taken financial accounting, then you can obviously put it in there and try to highlight it like that, right? Alright, so moving on to the work experience section, and here you want to list out your jobs in chronological order such that your most recent one is on the top. And similar to the education section, on one side you want to include the name of the employer as well as your position, and then on the other side you want to include the location as well as the dates that you were working there. So for the description of the job, I suggest you use bullets instead of using full sentences, and you want to use action verbs, so verbs like I created, I conducted, I researched, other things like that just get to the point in the end. And at the same time, if possible, you want to try to quantify things just so the recruiter gets more context as to how big or small what you did was, right? As an example, instead of writing I was responsible for creating a marketing campaign to sell more products, you should say created a marketing campaign that increased sales revenue by 40% quarter on quarter. It's to the point, it's got action words, and it quantifies, and that just gives the recruiter more information and perspective than just saying I sold more products than before. Another good tip for what to write in the bullets is to use the XYZ formula, and let me explain. It means I accomplished X as measured by Y by doing Z. If you're a sales rep, for instance, it could be something like grew subscriptions by 20% month on month by pitching new product features, where in this case the X, the accomplishment, is the subscription growth, the measurement is the month on month, so 20% in this case, and lastly the pitching new product features is the doing. And if you feel like you have no relevant work experience, say because you're still very young, it's still better to put something like bartending or tutoring or really anything. At the end of the day, it does show that you're motivated and you're trying to do something, right? Next up, we have leadership and awards, and this can really be anything from winning a chess competition to being a president of a club to doing volunteering work, or it can even be more educational stuff like one might be taking a public speaking seminar or going to a conference, other things like that. It is very vague as a whole, leadership and awards, so yeah, just try to use it to your advantage, right? And the same XYZ framework can also apply here, so let's look at an example. If you're the president of the school math club, one bullet could be increase the club's national ranking by 25 positions after winning the municipal tournament by developing a rigorous calculus training program. And again, like I said earlier, if you don't have much to say in this section, you can just omit it. You don't necessarily have to have it there. It's really about what makes your resume look best, right? And lastly, we've got the additional information section. And here there's really no clear guidelines. You can include things like the languages you speak, your interests, your extracurricular activities, or any links that you think are relevant. And this section is often overlooked in my opinion. This is basically, if you have two competitive candidates, it's what's gonna set you apart if you both go to the same university, for instance. Basically, if you have something in common with the recruiter, they're more likely to talk to you, right? So I wouldn't neglect this area at all. I would properly think about it. The last thing you wanna do is put some stuff that it's probably gonna sound like a lie, like say, I love studying, I love analyzing data, and I love reading my textbooks. Obviously, no one's gonna believe that, and it's not gonna make you feel very personable, right? And one resource that I think you should be using to your advantage, if you're still a student especially, has to do with the Career Center at your university. So if you don't know, your university typically hosts one-on-one sessions that are completely free with a career counselor, which is going to be the person that can give you some tips on how to structure your resume, cover letter, and so on. I studied at Cornell University, for instance, and this is what their Career Center has to say. Here it says, come see us for help with your career exploration, your resume, and so on. So it's definitely a resource that I think you should be using if you're still a student. After all, when you think about it from the university's point of view, if their students are going to the best jobs out there, it's obviously gonna enhance their reputation as a university too, right? So it's kind of in their interest to help you out. But if you're not a student, you can also still download some of their guides. So for instance, Harvard University has a guide on how to write a resume and a cover letter. So make sure to check that out. At the end of the day, they're a credible resource, obviously, and it's completely free. And the big elephant in the room, should you update your resume every time you send out a new application? To be honest, I personally did not. I actually had around 3 different templates. Basically, you want to have a template for each industry that you're interested in, right? Like say you're interested in accounting, you're interested in real estate, and you're interested in marketing. So you'd have 3 different templates based on that. Because at the end of the day, if you're applying to say an accounting role at PwC or an accounting role at Deloitte, the job description and the requirements are actually going to be almost the same. So I personally don't think it makes sense to update the resume each time. It's just going to take you a long time. I know that a lot of say counselors and experts say that it's worth updating it every time, but I personally thought it just took too long. So yeah, that's all for this video. If there's one key takeaway here, is that you have full control of the content of your resume, so try to make it seem as attractive as possible. That's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next one.